We're a planning firm in Berkeley that's been asked to help support these public meetings with the Board of Supervisors Committee on District Lines. And it's my job to just moderate the public discussion this evening, but most of the activities will be handled by the chair of the committee. But I wanted to start off tonight by thanking all of you for your time and attention in coming out tonight. This is the last of our scheduled meetings for this District Lines Advisory Committee, and we've had a really great turnout from the public at these sessions in 2 rounds, 10 meetings, and I think that's indicative of broad public interest in this process. And we've done our best to try and make this an open and transparent and responsive process. We've appreciated a lot of feedback and input into how these meetings are going. And the committee, I think, would agree that they've benefited from a lot of active, respectful, and useful participation. So tonight, the members are going to be determining a district lines map or maps to forward on to the Board of Supervisors. A couple of housekeeping notes. We are being videotaped tonight, and we're awaiting our court reporter. In the event that that person comes in a little bit late, we'll be using the videotape to catch up. But as with all the meetings, it's our intent to document these in their entirety and make those items available on the District Committee's website, as well as all of the public comment we've received. And there have been quite a few of those. Tonight we also have available, for anyone who needs it, Spanish and Chinese translations. So those are available, and they're up front here. Okay. So I'm going to turn over the meeting for now, just for roll call and attendance to the committee chair, Supervisor Tissier.
Okay. Sing that song and only takes a minute. Well, take the crowd. Anyway, good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm very happy to see a nice big crowd here this evening. We're looking forward to a lot of good input. To get us started, though, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And this is the final meeting of this body for September 24th. And I'm going to start, obviously, I'm here, Supervisor Warren Slocum.
Here.
Daly City Councilmember Sal Torres.
Present.
East Palo Alto City Councilmember Laura Martinez.
Here.
Hayden Lee of Millbrae.
Here.
Barbara Arrieta of Pacifica.
Here.
William Knack of Menlo Park.
Here.
Rebecca Asen of Daly City.
Here.
Raymond Lee of San Mateo. Eric Reed,
Here.
alternate. Andy Loya, alternate.
Present.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay. We also have in our packets the minutes of September 10th, September 11th, and September 12th. Anybody have any corrections or deletions?
I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, those are completed. We're now at the point where we're going to do oral communications and public comment, and these are for items not on tonight's agenda. Now, I have lots of parts here. Most of them indicate they want to talk about the supervisorial line, so I'm going to put those to number 6, which is public input on draft maps. I do have 2 that have checked off oral communications. The first one is David Carey, followed by Michael Pagona. Mike, do you want to do the others? Okay. David Carey, did you want to speak under oral testimony? Thank you.
Carrie.
My name is David Carey, and I live in Belmont. I want to thank all the committee members, both the elected officials and the public members, for your public service to the rest of us in serving on this committee. As others have pointed out, your task is to make important, difficult, and sometimes contentious decisions. These are decisions that will influence elections for years, perhaps decades to come. Because choosing district boundaries in our new election system create electoral barriers. Any district boundaries will unfairly hurt some groups of voters. As a result, the new elections will not be free elections. To To be sure, the elections that we used to use were not fair. They regularly excluded significant segments of voters from getting representation of their choice. District elections are not designed to be fair. They have to be manipulated to be somewhat fair. That is at best problematic. It strikes me as fundamentally undemocratic that any committee or governing board is shuffling voters around to give this group or that group an advantage in the design of electoral barriers, regardless of how open the process is or how good the intentions might be. How voters group together to elect their supervisors really should be left to the choices of individual voters in elections that are both free and fair. We could have free and fair elections in the not too distant future, elections where voters decide the results, and all segments of the county get their fair share of representation. But district elections are the wrong tool for the job. It's like we have a lot of bolts to tighten, and we've only graduated from using a hammer to using a pair of wire cutters to tighten them. That's why your job can be so difficult, and why, at least for the short term, we even need a committed office. So tonight, polish up your wire cutters and tighten those bolts the best you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman, did you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Members, just some cleanup on some things, and also some additional research I did today. I actually went back to look at the old maps for Daly City and for San Mateo, going back to the 1950s. And I'm distributing these to you so you can get a sense of what the old communities looked like 60 years ago. I was amazed by a couple of things. One, that Daly City only went about 1 mile south of John Daly as far as the city limits. San Mateo did not reach over to Belmont back in those days. And all the development that you see on the third one, which unfortunately isn't very clear, is a topographic map from the U.S. Geological Survey, which shows in the darker colors those areas that were developed in the late 50s, and the lighter colors, which are actually purple, not showing up on black and white, as areas that were developed afterwards. And I think that housing patterns also mean settlement patterns where people moved to. I know that in San Francisco, in Diamond Heights, when they developed new housing, and when basically Chinese were confined to Chinatown and North Beach, all Chinese families moved into Diamond Heights. The same thing applied in the development of Daly City, Pacifica, and South San Francisco and San Bruno, that a lot of Asians moved in the 60s and 70s because family housing became available. One other thing is that I did submit a comparison of the plans based on the amount of working people and city splits. I do have revised figures for the community union map. I was working on the version 4 versus 4C, and the stats are different in San Mateo. I looked at the wrong figures initially and the wrong lines. Actually, the divide was 21,000 initially. Under the new figures, the divide is 17,000. I'm trying to find my notes here, 17,954, and that represents 18.15% of San Mateo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, the rest of my cards, I assume, are for online drawing. So if there's anybody that wanted to speak in the communications and gave you a card, please come forward. Okay, then I'll save these for the number 6. Okay, I'm going to turn this back over to Doug Johnson. Over to Doug Johnson, and he's going to walk through the maps that we had from last time and the new ones that have been submitted, and then we'll take public input on those maps.
Obviously, lots of decisions to be made this evening, so I'll keep this short. You obviously know the criteria and the process that we're looking at, but let's do this. We have a set of plans before you. Obviously, the 3 plans that the committee voted to designate as active plans at the last meeting are actually the Community Unity 3 map the Nakamura 1A2 map, and precinct cleanup map. Then we received, well, I guess we received 3 plans, and then pursuant to the committee's direction at the last meeting, I drew 2 additional ones. The 3 that we received were Community Unity 4, which they designated as a replacement for Community Unity 3. Sorry about the confusion on the mapping. I actually posted the wrong map as we were cleaning up some little things in it. So that's the difference between 4 and 4C. But, so we have Community Unity 4. We have the Republican Central Committee submitted a new map labeled AA, and then Mr. Nakamura submitted an additional map labeled 1G. And then pursuant to the direction of the last meeting to take the South San Francisco district that they had drawn and fill it in, there are 2 versions of that. I should note, it was just pointed out to me before this meeting that actually I had a typo on the city splits list. For South San Francisco NDC 1, I had listed Redwood City as split. Obviously it's not, it should have said Pacifica split there. And then for South San Francisco 2, it said Redwood City as well, and it should have been Belmont. My apologies for that. We were working fast to get all these done in time and get all the comments and everything ready for you. So we have those plans. I won't spend a lot of time, but I'm happy to come back and go through details on how each one of them is laid out. I would note though that the Community Unity map, map 4 is down to 3 city splits in it. You may remember they started, the first version had 12, the map we were looking at last time had 5, and they've actually reduced that down to 3.
Just a quick comment, if I'm reading this correctly, your South San Francisco one that you did, number 2, does not split Pacific.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a typo.
So-
Oh, yeah. So that's why it's down to
The first one.
4 splits. Yes, the first one does, the second one does not.
With a split San Mateo. With a split San Mateo.
No, neither of those two. Then I put this map together to show you where the different plans are differing. And this is looking, I took the active plans, I swapped out Community Unity 4 for Community Unity 3, in part because it simplifies this map, in part because they've asked that you focus on 4. And so this is really the differences among the plans. Each of these arrows highlights the difference. So the first is Brisbane. Some of the plans put Brisbane in 1, others keep it in 5. The division in South San Francisco, whether it runs along El Camino Real as it does now, or whether it runs from northeast to southwest, there's different versions that do each of that. Hillsborough, in some versions, it stays in 1, in other versions it moves to 3. And then this is the pocket of San Mateo that is divided off. So some of the plans divide San Mateo. In Belmont, some of the plans keep it, one plan changes the division, some of the plans keep the current division, and then Community Unity actually puts it together in District 2, the whole thing. Then Redwood Shores, really precinct cleanup is the only map that keeps that separated. What else we got here? Oh, Menlo Park, some of the plans split Menlo Park. And then the unincorporated area down here is I can't quite read the name of that, but I can assume maybe when we get into discussion about it. Moves from place to place. And then I highlight the Emerald Hills just to highlight that in the precinct cleanup map, back when that was drawn, I was drawing it to pick all that one census block that we talked about in Redwood City up into Redwood City. And that actually means moving part of the hills into District 4. So that's really the only difference. Probably if that's the map we go with, probably want to look at that and switching that back to unify the hills. But it's needs to change. So this kind of highlights where the differences in the maps as we stand today are. Obviously, this does not have all the plans, all the new plans in it. 1G and the Republican AA map are not in here, nor are the NDC South San Francisco map. But those differences tend to fall in essentially the same places as well. So now with that, I wanted to keep this short and let us get through the discussion quickly. But obviously, I've got this in the mapping software, can zoom in on all the details and bring up active maps, that you're, or the new maps that you're seeing.
Could you just go through the city split chart again?
Sure.
We just go through one by one, make sure we're all, that's okay, the way we have it.
Yes, so so the changes in red are changed from what you have before you. So everything's unchanged in this except for the two South San Francisco NDC maps. And NDC 1 still stays at 3 city splits, but instead of Redwood City, it's Pacifica split. And then NDC 2, it should say 4 city splits. And then instead, Pacifica and Redwood City should come out of what's in your packet and add Belmont. And the numbers and demographics. Oh, and the other piece that's on this, because some of these maps, especially earlier, had relatively large deviations. So on the right-hand side of this table, including in the version you have, it adds the population deviation column, which wasn't there before. So that is, as we talked about before, that's the difference between the smallest district and the largest district. Ranges from 1.86% difference in South San Francisco NDC 1 up to 8.2% for Republican and AA. Questions at this point, or?
Let me just see.
Let me just see if anybody on the board here want to ask a question before I take public comment? Did you bring it?
Ringman with Cemetery County, City Cemetery. I had asked last time for a map in the deviations, the population deviations. Has that, I think that was done, but.
Yes.
How large of a deviation are we talking about in terms of?
So this was the request to look at Community Unity 3 and try to put a handful of the cities back together. We ended up at, and I think 23%. So, yeah, so when we just changed, we started with Community 3 and just changed the cities that we discussed last meeting. And it throws, District 1 ends up 16% short, and District 2 ends up 27% over. So you end up with a 40%. 40%.
So that amounts to, what is that population wise? Something that's.
Oh, it's, yeah, 23, it's 63,000 people.
It's pretty significant. I mean,
Oh, yeah, you can never do that.
yeah, so it's impossible to keep all cities whole, is basically.
The way we were looking at it that time, yes.
No, that was helpful for me. So I guess the vision, for my purpose, for myself, it's really divided cities not so much based on convenience, but based on public comment certainly, but what makes sense in terms of community of interest, and that's significant. So I just want to express that I asked for that illustration because it is difficult to divide these districts to keep all cities whole. And again, my purpose, I think what I like to look at and choose to say is that we look at dividing these cities on what makes most sense and not just for convenience.
Any other comments before we go to the public? Yes, Laura, you want to use the microphone so everyone can hear you?
Laura, it's the left button you need to press. Hold for just a couple seconds. It should come on.
I just wanted to ask if this was our last meeting. I walked in and you were talking about meetings. Is this our last meeting or are we meeting in October?
this is our last meeting. And then
Okay.
whatever we put together this evening will go forward to the Board of Supervisors for October 8th.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Mr. Knapp?
This is for the county council. Have you reviewed the maps that we are going to be looking at tonight? And or do you have any concerns from a legal standpoint with any of the maps that we're going to be making a decision about?
Paul, can you grab that?
Grab the microphone.
Yes.
I don't know the best way to take this out. Paul Okada from the County Council's office. Yes, we have had a chance to review the maps. As with before, we think that all of these maps, frankly, are legal, but certainly based on public comment, we will have decisions to make based on which ones, well, one or ones that we'd like to forward on.
Thank you, Paul. Any other questions? Okay, then we'll go ahead and get some public comment. We'll start with Mike Mangona, followed by Jess Benton.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, I just wanted to say, are we keeping a 2-minute time? Would you like to?
Sorry, yes, 2 minutes.
I come before you today personally as myself, as a person that's lived in Daly City for 48 years. I've been a resident of District 5 for all of those years. I'd just like to tell you that the Community Unity Map 4C, one that was actually looked at by the City Council after comments, and one that we're advocating, is the one that I would request that you adopt. And the number of reasons, one of the first reasons is a reason that I wasn't going to mention at first, and that is that it's got the least amount of city splits. If that's one of the concerns that this board has, and I believe from the comments that it is considering that it has the fewest amount. The second part, I think, is that we clearly define what the community of interest is there. Growing up in that neighborhood, you didn't really, I had this conversation earlier with someone, you really don't know what part of the neighborhood you're in unless you look up and see a sign and see what color that sign is. And the area specifically I'm talking about is in the Westboro area. In the Westboro area, there's a church out there, St. Augustine. On Sundays, people from Daly City, Pacific, and all around go to that Catholic church. Oftentimes they congregate over the border in Daly City, at Goldilocks and other places to eat there. This community of interest is one that has a long standing. When I started in city politics 20 years ago, Daly City had 40,000 people. It is now 110,000 people. It is a very diverse district, and it's one that we want to keep diverse. And I think that 4C is the map that best mirrors the diversity in our district. So I would urge you, all of you, to support that map and ratify that map as the district map. Thank you.
Okay, Jess Benton, followed by Mary Ann Nyhart.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jay Benton, and I'm the mayor of the town of Hillsborough. Hillsborough shares a border with both Burlingame and San Mateo, and we've had a good working relationship with both cities. But tonight, I want to urge you to pick a map where Burlingame and Hillsborough remain in the same district. Hillsborough and Burlingame merged their fire departments several years ago, 9 years ago, forming Central County Fire. So we have a close working relationship with the town of Burlingame. Central County Fire is in merger discussions with San Bruno and Millbrae. Indeed, Central County provides administrative services to those cities, and our fire chief provides the fire chief services to those cities. One day, we hope that will lead to a full merger. So having Millbrae, San Bruno, Burlingame, and Hillsborough in the same district is important to us. Burlingame and Hillsborough share recreational facilities. Burlingame, Hillsborough, Little League have kids from both cities on the teams, and the teams play on the fields of both Burlingame and Hillsborough. So there's a strong relationship with our recreational activities. If I understand Community Map 4, and I saw something tonight I had not seen before, or Map 3 or 4, it has Hillsborough aligned with the coastal cities. Is that correct, Mr. Johnson?
No.
That's what you said earlier. You said it was in District 3.
Yeah, it's in 1G.
I would go. It's Community Unity 3.
Earlier you showed it's 3. If it's indeed 3, we thought it was in the southern district. Well, we have a...
Here it is. Yeah, it's in 3.
Yeah, which is the coastal. We have a great admiration for our neighbors to the coast, but in fact, all of our interrelationships are with the communities on the east side of 280, our shopping, our infrastructure, our library services, I mentioned fire services in detail. To put Hillsborough aligned with the coastal community really carves us out into an area that really makes no logical sense.
Thank you, Mr.
We're in
Benjamin.
one of the districts that, one of the maps that keeps Burlingame and Hillsborough together. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ann Neihart, followed by Ray Buenaventura.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the committee, for your efforts. I'm here as a member of the City Council from the City of Pacifica. And last night, we voted to send a letter unanimously to Supervisor Slocum and Supervisor Tissier, stating more of a concept than an individual map endorsement. And our concept, I just heard alluded to by my colleague from Hillsborough, and that is that we keep the coastal communities together. Our issues are incredibly different, and yet we love being part of San Mateo County. As a member of CK for a number of years, I have enjoyed and admired the Grand Boulevard and many of the issues that my colleagues from other cities actually represent and struggle with. But our issues of trying to get transportation to the coast in an economical way, of trying to address coastal erosion, of trying to address things like this sediment realignment plan that is being proposed by some of the individuals in ABAG, a few from Coastal Conservancy, and a group with San Francisco. It presents a unique challenge for coastal communities. I also want to say that we have admired our colleagues in Daly City. We enjoy that, but lumping off the top of our community takes much of the diversity from our community as well. So I really want to say, and also coastal, just as a coastal erosion issue, it takes the part of town that is sliding into the ocean and makes national news on a regular basis. So I really want to stay, the council voted unanimously to stay with the coastal communities, to stay in existing District 3, and have those be a unifying concept, no matter which map you might choose. Thank you.
Thank you. Ray Buenaventura, followed by Michael Mangini.
Good evening, I'm Ray Buenaventura, I'm the mayor of Daly City, and I'm here to urge you to adopt the Community Unity Map. For those of us that have supported the Community Unity Map from the beginning, we have listened to your concerns, to your grumblings about the city splits, and we have revised and continued to work with all of you to try to get a more equitable map to your liking. Because we have heard how city splits are important to you, so we've constantly worked at trying to arrive at a map that will please the majority of you. We recognize that it's not going to please everybody, but we have been trying to work at a solution. We've been trying to give you maps and hopefully agree with the community map that we propose. The other thing I'd like to comment about is that I hope that we don't go backwards tonight. You know, there has been talk about voting rights, the Voting Rights Act, and the dilution of the minority vote. Now, your county council lawyers may tell you that the maps look okay, but as they have said, and as the lawyers for the other interests have said, there is no bright line test. And I would suggest that you move as far away as you can from any map that dilutes the minority vote. That is not going forward. That is taking us a step back and takes away from why we're even doing this in the first place. So I would urge you to adopt the community map. You have an entire city, the largest city in San Mateo County, who has voted on a resolution to adopt the community map. You have the weight of the entire council to do so as well. That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Mangini, followed by Carol Matsumoto.
Thank you, members of the committee, for your extraordinary work. My name is Michael Mangini. I'm president of the Emerald Hill Homeowners Association. We represent the unincorporated areas located west of the Alameda and Redwood City, which includes Oak Knoll Manor, Emerald Lake Hills, and as the community is known collectively now, Emerald Hills. I urge the committee to adopt a plan that keeps our community united. There is a movement afoot here, a part of our community into District 4 and the remainder of it in District 3. Frankly, we would like to be included with District 4 as we have much more in common with the Redwood City area than we do with the coast. Our issues are different. We're a small community. There's only 3,600 households. But as you know, before the council, we have our own distinct issues, and we'd like to keep our representation intact for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carol Matsumoto, followed by Carolyn Shu.
Before you start my time, please, I'd like to...
I just took a minute off of that. You only have a minute left. Any excuses, you lose a minute. That's all I can say. Go ahead.
I have about 15 people, and rather than do 2-minute speaker cards, I'm just going to speak. So I'm doing you guys a big favor, number one. Number two, I just want to recognize my fellow council members. Sure. I have Rich Barbarino and Praddy Gupta, and we members of the planning commissions and residents and other committee members. So I want to thank them. I was criticized for not bringing people, so we have them here this evening. Would you please stand up, South San Francisco people?
Now, when the music starts,
Okay. I'm ready. And please forgive me for being, I just scratched out so many things. South San Francisco believes that the Republican AA map does a better job of accomplishing the goals of the Asian Law Caucus in the community unity map. And as a Democrat, I'm going to refer to it as the equity map instead of the Republican map. Excuse me. The equity map will split 6 cities, including South San Francisco, for no more than 26%, leaving the rest at least 74% of any split city within the district. It will reduce Belmont, San Carlos, and Menlo Park's political orphans to 17%, 5%, and 26% respectively. Political orphans are defined as the smaller portions of the city within another supervisorial district, e.g. currently 45% of South San Francisco is in District 5, where another 55% in South San Francisco is in District 1. District 5 will remain a 50.1% Asian CVAP minority district, 52% to be exact. District 4 will have the highest minority majority CVAP of any other proposed maps based on NEC's updated summary of city splits in Districts 1, 4, and 5 demographics. The minority CVAP for equity map is 48% as compared to the community unity map, which is 46%. Pacifica will remain on the coast side and remain whole in District 3. Thus, the equity map accomplishes the same goals that the community unity map accomplishments, but with less political orphans and less dilution of political power, splitting cities no more than a 74-26% split, while maintaining strong majority-minority districts, a District 3 and a Pacifica, and many cities as whole as possible. I know there was some concern about the total population and, of this map, but this committee has repeatedly said that it's okay to go beyond the 5% population deviation as long as communities of interest and cultural communities can stay together. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, if you could slow down a little bit,
I was
because
trying
the
to make my 2
translator.
minutes.
Yes,
I know.
the interpreter is trying to keep up with you, sorry.
it's all right, we'll have to listen to the tape.
I'm sorry, I was worried about the 2 minutes. Okay.
It's okay. I think the committee got the message.
I'll put it in writing if you want me to.
Okay, Carolyn Shu, followed by Kathy Rios.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Shu from Advancing Justice Asian Law Caucus, and We submitted a statement earlier today, and I'm not quite sure if you had a chance to read it, so I wanted to go over, basically summarize some of the points that we wanted to make. First, we wanted to thank this committee for all your hard work. I know that you have a difficult job in front of you trying to please everybody, and so we appreciate your commitment to this process. The community uni map, it started as something that we wanted to engage the community and be able to highlight the voices of the community that traditionally haven't been heard in county processes. And we held about a dozen meetings in order to collect this testimony, and I urge you to look back at
Hold on just one second. Can I please ask the people in the audience, we're getting distracted by conversations in the room, so if we could please just let the speaker speak and,
I'm sorry, I just translated. Is there any way else I should sit in the back?
I'm sorry, say that again?
And the interpreter needs to be talking so that they can hear. Is that what she's
She's interpreting. She's interpreting.
She's a Spanish interpreter.
She's interpreting.
I can't hear what you're saying. If you're interpreting, we're going to have to find a way to do it because we're distracted. We can't hear what she's saying. At least some of my colleagues are saying. So somehow if you can either be closer to that person and help them. Okay, just so we can hear what you're saying. Why don't you go ahead? I'm sorry. Go ahead and start over.
Let's see. So we held about a dozen meetings to collect the testimony that we submitted with our original narrative, and I urge you to go back and look at that. And throughout this process, what we've done is we've been able to incorporate the additional testimony that we've heard from the general public, and we've made revisions in response to that testimony because we do really want this to be a community unity map. And I wanted to highlight some of the changes that we have made in 4C, which I think that there might be some confusion as to the different maps that have been issued. So first, what we've been able to do is District 5 essentially remains what it is today. South San Francisco is split in virtually the same manner that the current 2011 map is. And we've kept Westboro in with District 5 because we've heard community testimony that they believe that they're essentially an extension of the Daly City community of interest. San Mateo City is generally kept whole in District 2. We wanted to accommodate the community of interest that spoke in Millbrae about Millbrae and Burlingame trying to be kept whole, but we wanted to also accommodate the community of interest that has provided testimony that the eastern part of San Mateo is generally a low-income immigrant community that shares a lot in common with the community of interest that lives and resides in San Bruno and the eastern parts of South San Francisco, and that's why you'll see that certain carve-out in eastern San Mateo. We also left San Mateo High School with the rest of San Mateo in order to minimize the impact there. East Menlo Park is placed with East Palo Alto and Redwood City, and the reason why it's separated from West Menlo Park is because, again, we've heard a number of people come and testify as to why they believe that they're a separate community of interest, given that generally the people who reside in East Menlo Park tend to be more low income, they tend to be renters as opposed to homeowners, and the West Menlo Park the community of interest tends to be more similar to the community of interest that resides in Atherton, and that's why that line is split at that place. Additionally, we placed Menlo Oaks in with District 3 because we've also heard that the community there is more similar to the communities that reside in Atherton and West Menlo Park. So through this process, we tried to accommodate as many people who have spoken in different communities of interest, and we hope that the committee here can also support this community as truly a community unity map. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question for her.
Sure.
Just a question. You mentioned, you said two different things at one point. You said you took note of the testimony that was given here, but I thought you said something that you also talked to residents at other meetings. Did you have other community meetings where you used the information to derive a map?
Yes, and we summarized that testimony in the original narrative that we submitted with the first community unity map. So,
but I mean, since that time, though, have you had other ones?
Yes, we have had other community meetings. Yes, and additionally, we've kept a mailing list for the people who aren't able to come to these meetings. They've been able to provide input to us through email and phone.
And have you made that available to the board?
The
communications you received?
No, not those communications, but those ideas have been incorporated through the maps as they evolve.
Thank you.
And additionally, my colleague Joanna from the Lawyers Committee also has comments to make. She can make it at a later time if you prefer working it.
Can I ask you a question, please? You mentioned that you submitted a statement to the committee.
Yeah, I
Do we
emailed it
have-
over today.
Do we have copies of that statement in our packets?
I don't know.
No.
I don't see it.
Well, my colleague Joanna, when she gets to it, she can summarize the second portion of that statement.
Okay, thank you. Katuya Rios?
Hi, good evening. My name is Becca Rios, and I live in Palo Alto. And I just wanted to comment that I actually support the community union map because it's keeping East Palo Alto, East Menlo Park, and Fair Oaks together. I support it because East Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, and Fair Oaks, we have similar interests, similar lifestyles, and I think it will be really good for us to be together instead of being separate. And yeah, we have a lot of our community here sitting there with the interpreter, and they all support the same idea as being all together instead of being separated. Because again, we have the same interests, same capital-wise, we have the same type of lifestyle, and it will be better for us to be all together. Because I live in that community, I know that, and I work with the community, so I see how we work together. Yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Julio Garcia, followed by Greg Conlon.
Good evening. Julio Garcia, Red Bull City, North Fair Oaks. So first of all, I want to commend you on the great work that you did. I mean, it's many nights looking at this one. We went to a few meetings, and we're here with members of Nuestra Casa, people who live in Red Bull City, North Fair Oaks, East Palo Alto, and Menlo Park. Support the community map for, I don't want to repeat what my colleague Katia said, or other people say, but you know, I talked last time about civic participation, infusing new blood in the civic participation in our cities. I know that, you know, our community map is not perfect, still divided a few cities, but what can we do? You know, we're not going to be able to accommodate everybody. But at least, you know, if we have people with similar interests, similar cultures, language, income, people who go to school together and we keep them together, I think this is going to be great for us. So once again, thank you very much for your hard work, and we'll see you, and hopefully you support the community map, and it's one of the ones who's going to the council supervisor next month, and definitely we will be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Conlon, followed by Alejandro Suarez. Please.
It's Greg Conlon from Atherton. I just want to make 2 points, really. I just think the temptation is going to be very great for you to leave things the way they are originally, because it would be the easiest solution. But I just want to say that, you know, two of the important criteria for drawing lines is that the community of interest with the other cities that are in the same district, and that you're contiguous with each other. And I just think the present system where you have Menlo Park in District 4, you have Atherton in District 3, you have Redwood City in District 4, and you have San Carlos in District 3. So you've got a hopscotch of cities going up the peninsula that are not contiguous, and in some extent not a community of interest. So I think you run a risk if you do nothing, otherwise if you stay the way you are, that it could be challenged. Now your legal people said that they were not at risk, or that they were illegal, but I think there is a risk of being challenged as not being contiguous and not having community interest in at least in those 4 cities. And I know Hillsborough and Burlingame mentioned earlier that they had a concern. So I think that there is that the easy way out is still, I think, not risk-free. The other point is Atherton and Menlo particularly, which is where I live in Atherton, that the community, the two things that the community of interest. One is schools. We have the Menlo Atherton High School. We have 7,000 people in Atherton, and during the day we have 7,000 students going to more than 10 schools. So, I mean, we have a lot of Menlo students going to the private schools in Atherton and in the public schools in Menlo Atherton. So you've got this community of interest of education. All of Atherton, we have no commercial, so our main commercial is in Menlo Park. And the Republican maps put the largest percentage together, Menlo Atherton, where Menlo is split just short of 101 and everything west, where the two other maps also put Menlo in with Atherton, but to a smaller percentage. So I just encourage you to try and follow the contiguous principle and the community of interest and change the present maps and hopefully do a better job of putting those things together. Thank you.
Yes, we have a question for you.
Did you want to put Atherton in District 4? Is that what you were saying?
No, District 3, Menlo Atherton in District 3.
Okay.
I mean, the problem is the South Coast has only got 70,000 population, and you have to have 150. So it's just no matter where they go, they're sort of without a home. And I'm not saying that Menlo Atherton is the best solution, but housing, a lot of the housing is the same in both areas as far as the cost. So I think that would be a logic for going into 3.
Thank you. Alejandro, I'm not sure, the Suarez? Suarez. Followed by Sue DeGree.
Hello? Oh, sorry, I just wanted to test that. Well, I'm from Redwood City, California, and I'm here to support that. I really don't want Emerald Hills, places like that being together in one district with places like East Palo Alto, Redwood City, and other places, because they don't share mostly the same interests. Other people from the other places, they get more of an income, while the other place, Palo Alto, Redwood City, they get a lower income, which doesn't seem right that they be put in the same district because their interests are the same, and yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sure.
Fine. Which one are you supporting a specific map?
Map 4.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, Sue DeGree, followed by Lynn Erickson.
Good evening. I don't envy your job. So I am a Pacifican. I'm also a member of City Council. I also live in the northern part of Pacifica. And every morning I meet with residents there. Pacifica in general is a very diversified city, and I certainly meet with the northern residents who are very diversified. So this is a goal of unity, so we'd like to keep our city definitely unified. And because of the ocean, we're an asset to the county, the state, the nation. And I think that any map would love to have the coast on it. So I'm encouraging, however, to make sure that the coast is an asset for everybody, that we do remain as the coast. And we have the local coastal plan, which also demands that there is accessibility for everyone in the county, the state, the nation, to get to our beaches and enjoy life. So definitely please keep Pacifica whole and as part of that coast, and keep the coast whole. And God bless you all.
Thank you. Lynn Erickson, followed by Joanna Ingram.
Thank you for the chance. Thanks for the chance to address you. I'm Lynn Erickson of El Granada on the coast. I'm a member of the Mid-Coast Community Council. At your meeting on the coast, we had sent you a letter giving our support for the coast district area to remain unified, and I think nearly all the maps do that. In addition, in previous meetings, I've commented with concern that San Carlos had been moved out in the community unity map, which overall is what I support. In map 4C, they have changed that. So I wanted to speak as an individual in support of community unity map 4C, noting particularly that it keeps San Carlos whole as part of it. And I think it's done a very good job of meeting the concerns raised by Atherton to put a good portion of Menlo Park in with the district as well, which I think is a good fit. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Ingram, followed by Jorge Rios. Yes.
On behalf of the Lawyers Committee, I'd like to thank the committee for all of their hard work in this process. We do not envy you. This is a very difficult decision you have before you. But we just wanted to comment on the community unity map. As my colleague Carolyn mentioned earlier, the map meets the county's legal obligations under federal law by recognizing communities of interest and reducing the likelihood and the risk of minority vote dilution. According to the demographic information provided by NDC Demographics, the number of registered Asian and Spanish surname voters is particularly low here in San Mateo County. And since CVAP, Citizen Voting Age Population estimates, are estimates of the eligible voting population, not the actual number of people who vote in any given election, the risk and degree of vote dilution among minorities is actually increased and heightened when there is low voter turnout. Given the depressed low voter turnout rates among minority communities, it is even more critical that minority populations in potential majority minority CVAP districts, such as districts 1 and 5, are not reduced below the 51% CVAP threshold. Preserving a 51% CVAP in these districts is the safest way for the committee to avoid and immunize itself, or the county, from litigation, and to ensure that vote dilution does not occur. Indeed, the failure to create a majority-minority district when it is possible to draw such a district would leave the county vulnerable to litigation. Of the maps that have been submitted, we would like to note that several maps recently submitted do still run the risk of diluting the minority vote in violation of Section 2, and those maps are Nakamura 1A2, Precinct Cleanup Map, and South SF NDC 2 because they do depress the vote below the 51% threshold. Additionally, I'd like to comment that it's very telling that many community members who prior to this process did not have a voice are actually sitting in the back of this room learning about and trying to participate in this process through a translator. And this is about a voice in this process. Community members really want to have a place at the table with the rest of San Mateo County, and it's something to keep in mind as you're looking at these maps. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jorge Rios?
Hi, my name is Jorge Rios. I come from East Palo Alto. And I support the community map because it keeps Fair Oaks, East Menlo Park, East Palo Alto together. And, well, you know, like, most of us live together since child, little kids, and we go to school together, and we like to stay together because that's the best for us. We have the same interests. We want to go to school together. Everything to be involved together. Pretty much. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's the last of my speaker cards. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak that I didn't have a card for?
Stood up 4 and 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, come on up.
Commissioners, Chris Bowman, I was the author of the Republican Plan AA, and I want to thank Mayor Mayamoto and the people from San Francisco for supporting the equity map. And I think she testified correctly that basically there's been a convergence. I mean, I must tell you, I was quite shocked and pleased when I saw the community unity map that came out on Thursday. It is 97.8% identical to our map. Where we differ is on Menlo Park in South San Francisco. The rest of the map, as far as I'm concerned, is fine. We divide San Mateo where it's divided. Although we would agree to put the high school back in San Mateo in District 2. We keep Pacifica out. But we increased the CVAP in District 4 so that Hispanics for the first time under any of these proposals is over 25%. The Asian CVAP in District 5 goes up nearly 1 point, 99/3 of a point. Additionally, I would like to say that Raymond Lee proposed, and I don't know what happened with this proposal, of looking at our map, our previous submitted map, which was I forget what, I think both did the same thing, which basically moved the border on Menlo Park east in District 2. And we have moved it all the way to the same line as the difference between the 14th and the 18th congressional districts. Now, why is that important? Because west of that line, Menlo Park, 75% of Menlo Park is 80% white CVAP. East of that, and we're including the flood tract in it, it's 1/3. If you go all the way to 101, it's 5%. So, you know, do we really want to divide Menlo Park 41, 59%, or 75, 25%? I would suggest that that's important. Also, finally, in conclusion, I think it's amazing that all of the proposals plus the existing lines put the 4th largest city in the county, which is South San Francisco, where the portion that is in District 1 is 10,000 fewer people than San Bruno. That is unpardonable. That is complete erosion and dilution of their political power. And ours is the only plan, plus the 2 that the consultant did with Mayor Miyamoto.
Could you please wrap it up?
To 25%. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have a couple questions for you. Don't go away. A couple questions.
Actually, this is more a comment. I wanted to compliment you on your concerted effort between South San Francisco and your Republican former maps. I see a marked improvement, and it's my understanding from a conversation with Carol Matsumoto before the meeting that South San Francisco maps that have been offered to us are now really going under the flag of your Republican AA map. That is still standing correct for our deliberation this evening. And the one thing, and I know that you have done a lot of work, and as I said, I compliment you on it. I have a concern about District 1 and District 5, the variation in the population. I'm seeing about 12,000 voters here. That's pretty substantial. Can it be tweaked in any way that would be palatable?
They could be, but you know, I went with a 1% map in the first 2 versions that we did. And that created issues about city splits and also with the proportion of the cities that were divided. So we are allowed up to 5% variation, plus or minus, to make cities and communities of interest more whole than they are now. And that is why we did what we did. Obviously, if you look at District 4 is underpopulated by about 4.7%. But what we did by doing that is to make the Hispanic CVAP over 25% and the minority CVAP the highest of any of the plans, and the white CVAP the lowest of any of the plans. So that's why we have variation. It's perfectly legal. I think the General Counsel would agree with that, but that's my answer.
Please, Paul.
While our office does believe that that the maps are likely legal, the difference in the population is something that we would want to work with NBC to look at a little bit further. Typically, whatever maps this committee would recommend to the Board of Supervisors would be analyzed by NBC prior to the presentation to the Board of Supervisors, so that issues like that, if there are changes or tweaks that need to be made, it can be made.
Thank you.
Could I say one more thing? There's concern about 6 city splits we have. I've worked this afternoon to find out a way to create 5 city splits by bringing 1,400 people of Belmont or San Carlos back into District 3, making San Carlos intact, and putting the flood tract into the district, and it works. It's still within 4.9% in District 4, but we do unify San Carlos. There is a way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you before you sit down. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your work. It's not clear to me from looking at your map what happens in Menlo Park. It looks like it comes down and splits west of El Camino.
That's not our map. almost 5 of the proposals split it at El Camino. The Nakamura 1G splits it at Middlefield. The precinct adjustment map or cleanup map keeps all mental parks in District 4. And we moved the line to the same line as the congressional district between basically Palo Alto and Willowville on the East Palo Alto border and also along 101. But for balancing of population, we then did down to Bay Street, which is the eastern boundary of Atherton. So that portion, which is about 2,200 residents of Menlo Park, remains in District 4. Thank you.
Okay, I have one more speaker, David Carey.
Always find a new way to make a good professional voice. My apologies, Supervisor. My name is David Carey. I live in Belmont. I introduced this political map of precinct-level voting patterns with the intent of evaluating how politically compact or dispersed the districts of various plans are. Political compactness and political dispersion are opposites. Politically compact districts with similar voting patterns tend to allow better representation of voters within those districts, and such districts in combination tend to elect a board of supervisors that better reflects the diversity of the county. Moving on to the next slide, we're looking at the 7 plans being actively considered tonight. And the community unity format is the community unity, what we're calling the community unity 4C version here tonight. I found that there was no significant difference in how politically dispersed the individual districts were on average. I did find that any one of these plans would be a significant improvement over the at-large from district elections that we had used previously, which is that's shown on the far right. Free and fair elections would lower the dispersion well below what is possible with any of the district boundaries, which is what the orange shaded background is, showing the range of what's possible with district elections, with drawing district boundaries. Looking on to the next slide, I also looked at how dispersed the political centers are of the districts. Creating political separation between districts is good. Again, all 7 plans are about the same with very little, if any, significant difference. Here also, any one of the plans would be much better than the old at-large, which had 0 separation between the districts. But all the plans fall well short of what free and fair elections could provide, which would be well above the orange background. And then finally, looking at the next slide, if we zoom in to the middle of the voting patterns map inside the smaller 1 standard deviation ellipse, and move on to the next slide, I looked at the relative positions of the centers of the districts. Here, there are some differences that might have at least some minor political significance. Compared to the current districts, none of the plans move the district centers very far, but those that move the centers the furthest tend to move them in the same direction. That's on the last page of the handout.
Okay, you're going to have to, your time is up, so we can maybe just kind of wrap it up.
Yes, the fact that the 7 plans appear so similar suggests a convergence, which the previous speaker mentioned. And I would also say I much appreciate the way the community unity map has been able to reduce the city splits and manage what city splits they have left. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's my final speaker card, so unless there's anyone else that wishes to speak, I'm going to bring it back to the committee. Yes, you may.
I think that we have a lot of good material to deliberate on here. The maps, in my opinion, got better as we went along. And we've talked about a multiplicity of choices versus just one recommendation. So can we clarify how we're going to approach that? Are we going to just submit 1, or are we going to submit X? And what would that X be?
it's really up to this committee. I mean, last week we brought it down to 3, which if everyone agreed, those were 3 they wanted to submit, we could have. Then we ended up getting 5 more. One is actually replacing Community Unity 3, so the decision here is, do we want to replace Community Unity 4 with 3? We want to add any more to our existing list. We want to keep our existing list. So we can send 1, we can send 5, we can send everything that's here on, that we pared down to if we want to. So I mean, it's really up to this committee. Let me just make a suggestion on my part, personally, and more than I've been here throughout the process. But I do think for the board as a whole, I would prefer to send more than 1 so that they can see sort of what the process was and sort of the different groups that have commented and the different maps that reflected that. So it gives the board a chance to really look at it, because otherwise if you get 1, they're going to say, I want to see what you went through anyway, and I'd like to be able to show them that personally. Sal, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Please excuse me, I'm getting over bronchitis, so I'm going to be a little hoarse. So I agree that I think we should send more than 1 map. And Barbara, we were thinking the same thing. And I think the point to be clarified, we should have more than 1. I would submit that we should at least have 3 to give the Board of Supervisors some ability to negotiate and talk, blend whatever they need to do. So I think that's a healthy thing, given all the work we've done. And I want to thank everybody who's here and congratulate you all for all the hard work and concentration. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank everybody that's out here. I want to thank the interpreter for doing a great job interpreting for our Spanish-speaking community. Given the hour of time, I'd like to make a motion, if I can. When I was here last time, and I apologize I missed the last meeting because of a medical appointment, I asked all of you to seriously consider Community Unity 3. Because of, and I know now it's been supplanted with Community Unity 4, so that measure of a request is now blended into Community Unity 4, obviously, because I think that's a better map than Community Unity 3. I think it does the best job of not only preserving as many of the cities as possible, but it does an excellent job at incorporating and enveloping as much of the communities of interest that have spoken at all various meetings we've had here. We've had 10 already. This is our 10th one today. But we've had an enormous amount of participation from all walks of life, from all communities. And I think that the people that work at Community Unity should be commended for taking control of all those things and trying to do the best thing that we could out of it. And it's not going to get everything. It's not going to please everybody. But if we're trying to do something here, which is what I think this committee was for, which is let's do something that moves us into the 21st century and gets us more towards representation of every community, then I think that map gets us there. It is the best blend of the community of interest, and it does lower the risk of any minority voting dilution, which was part of the genesis of the lawsuit. And not that should be our driving force, but I think it's something we need to think about. And I think that it incorporates as much as we can, not only of the cities of interest, but the communities of interest like the Asian population in northern San Mateo County and the Latino population in Central County. I know when I volunteered a number of years ago in North Fair Oaks, that was a really important issue for the Latino community in Redwood City and North Fair Oaks, that their communities of interest were not adequately represented. And I think that this map does that for this county. So with that background, I'd offer a motion that we submit to the Board of Directors, at least as one of the maps, the Community Unity 4C map.
Second.
Okay, any comments, questions? So we have a motion on the floor to put Community Unity 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I'm wondering if anyone else has any other suggestions moving forward. Would it be helpful if we went through the new ones that were submitted and determine whether we want to consider them with the first group, or go through the first group and see if we still want to keep them?
I'm not sure. We're pretty good, even though I've never met Sal before, but we seem to be in sync most of the time. I like the Republican AA map, South San Francisco submission, I really do. And this 12,000 difference in population perhaps can be worked out one way or another. So I think I would nominate that the Republican AA map be one of the others that go into consideration.
Okay. We have a second. Can I ask just a quick question? Because I'm a little confused not confused, but I just have a question between Republican AA and the South San Francisco NDC 2. They're fairly similar. I see a few places where there's some changes, but the difference is the Republican AA does have that 12,000. I mean, that's 12,000 more people than in District 5 into District 1. I mean, that's a huge number. But the South San Francisco NDC 2, the spread is much closer, yet it's almost identical. I mean, except when you get down to Menlo a little bit, and Hillsborough goes into 1 versus into 2. I just for consideration, I'd like us to, if we could all just take a look at those two, and if somebody could tell me that South San Francisco NDC 2 doesn't work, I think that's closer to me than to have a 12,000 person discrepancy. And if people don't mind, I'd prefer to put that in versus Republican AA. I think they're pretty close, but the numbers aren't so significantly different. Pardon me? No, I understand that, but Hillsborough is still whole in each one of them. But I'm talking really about the discrepancy between, 140,000 in Daly City and 152 in, not Daly City, but District 5 and 152 in District 1. That's a huge discrepancy. So, do you have any comment to that?
Let me just briefly go through. They do have a very similar border through South San Francisco, but then District 5 in the South San Francisco NDC 2 map continues down. It follows the freeway through San Bruno, looking at the additional population to balance it, to bring the District 5 into balance. And then, as you mentioned, because those people come out, Hillsborough, you can see by the pink lines in the NDC South San Francisco 2 map, and the islands are in 1. And the other piece is that the Republican AA map, or South San Francisco as the equity map, splits San Mateo, which this NDC South San Francisco map does not. And same thing with San Carlos. And then the split of Belmont is different. The NDC South San Francisco map keeps the current split of Belmont. The Republican equity map does, takes a much smaller piece of Belmont into, in this case, in District 4, in the other map is in District 3. And then Menlo Park, obviously, we discussed.
And Menlo Park.
So the division of Menlo Park is different, as we discussed.
And the other reason I see with San Mateo in particular, I mean, that's another very large city that's kept whole in the NDC 2 versus in Republican AA. So those are just my comments. I'd be willing to make a substitute, or maybe vote on both of them. But
I think we have a motion that's been seconded.
well, if I make a substitute motion, the substitute motion goes first. So I'm just trying to figure. Maybe for sake of it, I'm not going to rule out Republican AA, but I'd like to make a substitute motion. Well, no, let's go ahead. Let's take Republican AA. We have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
We have 2 that are opposed. Okay, that passes. And I'd like to make a motion to also include the South San Francisco NDC 2, because I'd like us to be able to talk through those 2 maps at some point when we get to the board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments?
Yes, I'd like to speak against it. I don't like the idea that you're taking away the majority minority in the District 1. Makes it less than 50% majority minority. So I'd like to speak, I'm in favor. I'm opposed to that, including that map.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
No.
So how many, raise your hand for an aye. Raise your hand for an aye so they can count the votes. 4.
Oh, 4?
You're not for South San Francisco, including it? Okay. Okay, so all those in favor? I just want to make sure we get the count, because they raise their hand.
What are you asking?
I'm asking to include South San Francisco NDC 2 to go to the Board of Supervisors. It's been, I made the motion, and I think Warren seconded it, and then I'm asking to vote. So let me just do again for vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. All opposed? Okay, that map won't go. Okay. Yes, you may.
Is there any map that keeps what the Mayor of Hillsborough was talking about? Yeah, keeps Burlingame, San Mateo, and Hillsborough together? I was a little confused on that.
Well, the precinct cleanup map certainly does put them together. Let me just walk through. Yeah, the Nakamura 182 map also keeps Burlingame, Hillsborough, and Millbrae together.
Okay, and is Mr. Nakamura asking that 1A2 not be considered, in that now we should consider Nakamura 1G?
No, he's not specific in that way. I asked him if he wanted 1A2 pulled, and he said no. I told him you're going to confuse the committee by...
How strongly did he say no?
He doesn't have a recommended plan.
And he's also not a resident of San Mateo County.
Right.
All right, any other suggestions for the committee?
Regardless, we can still consider his maps, right?
There's no requirement that they have to be a San Mateo County resident, is there?
Right, we can take ideas from wherever they are.
Sure does. Does anybody else have a suggestion? Yes, Sal.
Just in keeping, maybe to help reduce the maps, in keeping with the county meeting we had a couple of weeks ago, or last week, I would move to eliminate from consideration South San Francisco NDC 1 on a single premise, and that is because it splits Pacifica into two. And that would be consistent with what the committee had done last time, which is trying to keep Pacifica whole and in the coast. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Okay, I'll tell you, let me just tell you what's still on the table at the moment. We have Nakamura 1A2, precinct cleanup, Community Unity 4, Republican AA, and Nakamura 1G. So right now,
Information.
I'm sorry.
We have voted, sorry, but we have voted to move Community Unity 4 and Republican AA to recommending to the Board of Supervisors, yes?
we moved them to the active list.
Okay, got it. Oh,
And we took Community Unity 3 off the active list and placed it in Community Unity 4. So that doesn't mean we have to keep any of these still. We still can act on the active ones.
I'm sorry, what I'm trying to clarify is that my motion was that Community Unity 4 be one of the maps that was recommended by this committee to be considered by the Board of Supervisors.
Right.
Okay, so that's still...
Right.
Okay,
Are you replacing, let me clarify, are you still leaving Community Unity 3 on the table?
I suggested, let me just clarify. What I'm suggesting was that Community Unity 4 was supplanting Community Unity 3. So in that vein, I was saying because it did, I'm going to vote on Community Unity 4. And I guess the effect would be is that we're not considering.
That was my understanding too. I just want to make sure.
But if you want to eliminate Community 3, I think for purposes.
No, I think it's supplanted.
Okay.
I think that's what is there anybody that didn't understand that? Okay, I think we got that. So let me just tell you what's still on the table. Doesn't mean we can't make any additional changes, but we still have as active Nakamura 182 from last week, the precinct cleanup from last week, Community Unity 4, Republican AA, and Nakamura 1G. Those are ones that are on the table. We put the first two, Nakamura 182, on the active list and the precinct cleanup. Nakamura 1G is a new map. We haven't necessarily acted on it, but it's been submitted, so.
A little question here. My understanding in the past couple of motions and votes that Community Unity 4 was going to be moved forward to the Board of Supervisors as it vote tonight, and the Republican Equity Map was also going to move forward. Okay, because I don't believe you mentioned it in your last, I made a mistake.
We still have 3 that we need to deal with that are still on the table. So maybe I can do it this way. Is there anyone that wishes to make a motion to send Nakamura 1A2 to the Board of Supervisors? Take a motion to get it off the table?
I would like the motion that we move Nakamura 1G to the, I like 1G, it's
You want to move 1G to the Board of Supervisors?
1G.
Second, I second.
I'm sorry?
I second the motion.
You second that? Okay. We have a motion and a second on Nakamura 1G to go to the Board of Supervisors. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
And I'm a no also. So it's 3 no's, but I believe it passed. Did you be able to count those? You did a count there. Okay, let's do it one more time. All in favor of sending Nakamura 1G, please raise your hand. 3, 4, 5, and any opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, we'll send that forward. So far we have 3.
I'll make a motion to eliminate Nakamura 1A2.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to eliminate that going forward. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to bring the precinct cleanup map? I'm going to make a motion to bring that forward, just so we have a
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
If I can,
Yes.
one comment on that. Just technically on that map, that is the one that was back when we were worried about the Redwood City parcel.
Mhm.
So if you're open to it, I would suggest that we, for precinct cleanup, but with Emerald Hills United. Thanks to Mr. Moman's research with the city of Redwood Hills, it turned out the parcel we were worried about has no voters in it, so there wouldn't have to be
Okay.
ballots for that.
Okay, that's fine. So we have a motion and a second on that. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Can we have a little discussion?
Oh, you should, Pam. I'm sorry. Go ahead. One more.
I would like to speak against the motion. The precinct cleanup reduces the minority CVAP in District 4 to 42%. Reduces the minority CVAP in District 4 to 42%, which seems to be kind of low for that district. Reduces also District 1 to 49% according to the updated demographics. So I will vote against.
Okay. All right. Comment?
I recognize I can't vote, but I will also advise the committee that we do not consider precinct cleanup. I just think through this process, it would be superfluous if we suggested it, and it's not in the spirit of this process of thinking of some different communities while precinct cleanup just maintains the current communities. And so I think moving forward, if we want to stay true to the spirit of this process and rethinking the county and rethinking how voter turnout will look like in the future, the precinct cleanup does not do that. It moves us backwards. And that was just some comments I've heard earlier this evening. So I suggest, well, my recommendation is not to move that forward.
And just in the spirit of the conversation, the other reason I want to suggest that it be here is because I've gotten a lot of feedback from people in the community that said they want us to leave everything alone. Well, I'm trying to get almost a mix of voices here to come to the Board of Supervisors to get that opportunity. So but it's certainly up to this group to decide that.
I tend to agree with you, Annie, because I went with the community unity map and Republican equity map in that order, as it were. But I've seen a lot of the latest emails that have come in from various places in the county, and they are pushing for the precinct cleanup. And so on balance, that's why I would put it into play. It's not one that I'm putting in number one position, as it were.
Just one more to dovetail on Mr. Lee and Ms. Loya's comments. While I applaud the comments of some members of the community that we leave the district lines alone, we cannot forget that the precinct cleanup map, to a great degree, was or is tantamount to the district lines as they were drawn when we were an at-large county voting system. And the reason why we're here is because our at-large county voting system was found to not be fair or what have you, whatever the court decided. So That's why.
Point of clarification, that's not true.
That's just as a factual matter.
Could you use the microphone?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just as a factual matter, and I apologize, that's just not accurate.
Which part?
Well, kind of all of it. Basically, what happened was the lawsuit was filed, and then the voters chose to go from a at-large system to a district system, which is what's actually required by the county charter. So that's actually what the switch was. No court has ever suggested, has even considered the question of whether or not the district lines as they were legal or illegal.
Correct.
Sorry about that. Dave Silverman.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So I'll adjust my comments to indicate that if the voters were voting to not have an at-large election because the voters thought that the at-large elections were not fair, that we have to give credence to what the voters decided to do, which is to make it a district election so that we wouldn't have at-large elections. And that's why I think supporting precinct cleanup would eliminate what the voters decided to do at the ballot box.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, yes.
If I can make
It was my understanding that one of the options by the board was that they can keep lines as is. And if that is the case, I would much rather prefer that it be cleaned up in some fashion. That's not to say that I support lines as they are currently drawn. If I can offer, and I'm not sure what the process is going forward in terms of presenting this to the Board of Supervisors, but if I can ask that we prioritize the maps in terms of what is preferred by the committee, I would certainly entertain moving the cleanup map forward.
Let me just for clarity, because one of the things I believe was going to happen after this meeting is that there would be a memo coming from county council, or actually Doug Johnson, not even county council, that would put information in as to how we got to this direction here. So can we prioritize, or does it matter if you're going to put it in some text that makes you know what the comments were that related to each of these?
I think there will be a report going to the board, obviously, but I think if the committee wants to vote to say this is our first choice, second choice, third choice, that would be committee action. Obviously, the votes that the committee has taken and things like that will all be going as part of the board.
Okay. Well, let me we have a motion on the table at the moment to bring the precinct cleanup forward. And we have a second. Are we going to vote on that?
Let me just clarify one thing, just so the record's clean, is there was a comment that the precinct cleanup map reduces the Asian American and minority percentages. I just want to be clear, the precinct cleanup keeps the current line, keeps the current percentages. So it's not reducing it from where it is today, it's just not going to increase in some of the maps.
Okay, very good. All right, there's a motion, a second. All in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. Then we'll, did you want to make a motion to prioritize?
I would like to make a motion to prioritize.
Can we vote on, can we finish?
Oh, I'm sorry. All those opposed. I just assumed by the count that we're, so it's 5-4. Okay, so that will go forward. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to, I think there's only 3 maps currently that's on the table currently.
There's 3.
Or is it 2?
I see 3, community unity, results and equity, and Nakamura 1G.
So the last motion failed?
Yes. We can't hear you.
Oh, no, I didn't say anything as yet. I was thinking, I'm sorry. Did we vote on Nakamura 1G moving forward?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we prioritize the committee's preference in terms of maps to be presented to the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
Yeah, I'd like to speak against the motion. I've got, I feel like any one of these 3 would work for me, and I think we need to we've done our work. We're down to 3. I don't know how many we start with, close to 20. So I think the Board of Supervisors, they are the ones who are going to be making the decision. And to be honest with you, I don't even know how I would vote on if we prioritize. Because if you ask me, do you want to make Community Unity 1 first priority? Yeah. Do you want to make Republican AA first priority? Yeah. Do you want to make Nakamura 1G? Yeah. So for me, if you go that way, I'd probably abstain because I can't split them up. I think needing one of these 3 are good suggestions, and I would ask the committee to send it as the 3 suggestions to the board.
I was just going to make a comment. I would have a hard time prioritizing now because I'm going to have to vote it on at the board level, and I'm not sure. I sort of agree with Bill. They're so close, and there may be some tweaking on any one of these that I would not want to. I'd probably abstain as well in prioritizing them at this point in time.
Thank you. I'm opposed to the prioritization too. I support Mr. Neck's comments. And I would ask the lawyers just a question of curiosity. So we've eliminated certain maps tonight. This is for county council. We've eliminated certain maps during the process. Would the Board of Supervisors theoretically have the ability to reconsider those maps that this committee voted not to support?
Paulo Cotta from the County Council. Yes, it would.
I'm sorry, I'm obliged to ask a question. It sort of calls into, and I think this is the forum to ask this, and with all due respect, it sort of calls into question the body of work that we've done as a committee. If we've gone to the lengths that we have gone to listen to the testimony, sacrifice the time to make these meetings, to then decide as a body which ones we believe, being the members that were selected by the County Board of Supervisors to represent the entire county, if we've gone to the lengths we have gone to make a decision as a body to decide what is in the best interests of the county and the people that reside in it and the people that showed up to the meetings, it begs the question, why were we even formed if the maps that we have voted as a body to eliminate can obviously all be considered again by the Board of Supervisors?
So let me just answer that. First off, from the time this started, we indicated, one, that this was an advisory body, and that they would be sending forward their advice, and that from the get-go, we've always indicated that the board has the ability, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do it, but they have, and we made that very clear from the beginning. This is going to be advisory to the board, and that the board can either accept it, reject it. I mean, we've all had advisory boards that have done just that on our councils and our, like a planning commission in some ways is advisory to the city council and things, bring something forward, you could accept it, reject it, and do something different. That's just the process. Now, whether that happens would be up to the board, but I understand where you're coming from. We've made it very clear from the beginning. I just want people to know that it was spelled out at the beginning of what the process is and what this body's job is to do. So just, I don't want to make it sound like we're evil people that are just going to do as we please once it gets there.
It wasn't intended to be that either.
No, but your point is well taken. I think it was a couple of meetings ago, probably in Daly City, Mr. Rubin, an attorney from one of the advocacy groups, he pointed out that this body is the one that conducted the public hearings and did the research and the heavy lifting, as it were. And so 2 of the supervisors are part of us, but 3 aren't. And for them, and of course, they have their reading, and they're going to do their reading. It's not as if they keep themselves in the dark. But there should be perhaps more weight given to the advisory nature of this, because we've done a lot of heavy lifting. We've shown up at a lot of meetings. Personally, speaking to, I think, what Mr. Carey said earlier, I would have liked, in retrospect at this point in time, I would have liked to have seen us, if we really want to be Democratic or Republican or whatever the case may be, come up with our recommendations and have those, actually those recommendations go to the electorate for a vote on by the people. But that takes a long process, and I'm sorry that we didn't consider that from the get-go, because in the final analysis, I think that the people are the ones who should be weighing in on this. And that's all I have to say.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
just very briefly.
Sure.
Yeah, just to clarify, and I'm not commenting on any of the policy questions here, but from County Counsel David Silverman, the California Elections Code actually only permits an advisory body. It's set forth in section 21-500 of the Elections Code, and it specifically says that the board can appoint an advisory body, and it specifically says that the recommendations of the committee are advisory only. That's actually advisory only is the specific language of the section, and so that was really the only choice that the board had. And I also observed that the Elections Code requires that the boundaries be set by the Board of Supervisors. So I just wanted to clarify so there's no confusion there. Although all of these policy issues are obviously very well put, from a legal standpoint, it has to be an advisory body.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, first off, I would like to thank the participants here this evening. I think it was very helpful to hear all the voices. We also got quite a bit of correspondence over the last couple months. But I also, if people want to refer to the website from this point forward, I'm sure we'll still get comments, and that's smcdistrictcommittee.org, and that's sort of the one-stop for this whole process. This will come before the Board of Supervisors on October 8th. And there's several ways that if you want to submit additional comments, or others that do. You can also submit them via email to districtlines@smcgov.org, or you can send them to the Hall of Justice, care of District Lines Advisory Committee at 400 County Center, Redwood City, 94063. Or there's still some comment cards here that you can fill out tonight. So the process, as far as this, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I thought we had a motion on the floor.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I
sorry.
thought, Aiden.
And I wanted to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
Do we do it?
Forgive me, got off on a discussion, a tangent here, and I lost it. Okay, there was a motion on the floor to prioritize these, and there was a second.
And I would like to comment, and I would
Please.
like to say I would
If
be
you
in
could, if you could please use the microphone.
I would like to comment that I would be in favor of prioritization if the right maps are in the right priority. And those I consider, for example, perhaps I would like to make the community unity map #1, and I would be in favor of that. So I don't know whether Randy, you would want to consider an amendment to your motion, but that's my opinion.
Okay, well, what he's asking for is, you're asking if the group wants to prioritize it as a motion. He's asking if you want to prioritize it using that as the #1 priority.
Okay, so I second that.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to prioritize these with community unity being #1. So we have a motion and a second.
And discussion.
Is there any more discussion?
I just want to say something.
Again, I wanted to say that the Republican equity map, I believe, needs a little tweaking with that 12,000. So I prioritize, I agree with the prioritize of community unity as it now stands.
Any further discussion? Okay, so that would, if we prioritize, that would be #1. If we take a positive vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hands, please. All opposed? I'm actually going to abstain because we're going to have to take it out.
I think.
No, I'm going to abstain because it's going to come to us, and I don't feel comfortable prioritizing. Okay, yes.
I would like to move that the Republican equity map be the second map in prioritization.
Second.
Okay.
if I can just cover one thing on nomenclature. Just want to see if we can get consensus. Do we want to call it Republican equity, Republican AA? Just want to make sure.
Should that not be up to them?
He doesn't care.
He doesn't care. These are
Did you say could make it the good plan?
No, I'm saying it's a good plan. It doesn't make a difference what you call it.
Okay.
And they
As long as you say nice things about it.
I basically, the council would ask if we could call it just the equity plan.
Okay, at the request of Councilmember Monsanto, can we make it the equity plan? You want to hear that? Okay, then we'll call it
The equity plan.
equity plan, the double A equity plan.
Not Republican, just equity.
Okay, all right. So we have a motion and a second to make that number 2, which automatically will make the other number 3 if this passes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I'm going to abstain. Okay. So by default, we have Nakamura 1G as number 3. Sal.
One last comment, thanks. Let me augment my previous question, because it was literally just a question. I thought it was important to edify the community about the role of this committee, which is why I asked it. I think I'm comforted in the knowledge that both you and Supervisor Slocum have been part of this process the whole time. And the motivation behind the question was really that that the advisory committee has lived with you guys for the 10 meetings as well, and that the work we put in here will remind you and guide you as you advise the other 3 folks on the supervisor board when this does come up. So thank you for that time as well.
So once again, I just want to thank everybody for being here this evening. It was a very lively process. Warren, did you want to say anything?
I wanted to thank everybody for coming out, and some of you have attended several of these meetings. It's all appreciated. I enjoyed actually working with all of you on the committee. I especially want to give a shout out to Julio back there and say thank you for bringing the people from North Fair Oaks and East Palo Alto out here, and especially to the two or three young people that came up and spoke to the committee at the microphones. You're all to be commended. Thank you for doing that.
Okay, and I too want to thank this committee. You did yeoman's work, and it's been a long couple months, but thank you very much. A lot of time, a lot of effort, and I think it turned out very well. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.